All right, with that out of the way, let's dive in. So before I start going through the issues, does anyone have any PRs that they want to talk about, like anything that you think needs attention?
I have one. I will send here in this chat. Let me just send you. If you can up this one, I appreciate. Yeah, so just to give you a context, very fast here. Today we are using fixed property on the bottle rocket provider. The idea here is just like use like a kind of honor the user data, and we don't have fixed property on the code anymore. So today, when like the bottle rocket team add a new property, we need to add this property in our code, and this like it's a pretty not weird, but a lot of work. So the idea of this PR is to get rid of this problem. I can send you the issue as well if you want. Let me. This is the issue.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for bringing this up, Ronaldo, and thanks for the contribution. I will go ahead and assign this PR to myself. Um,
Okay.
and hopefully we'll try to get some reviews done this week. Carvin, you have a question?
Nice.
Yeah, I have a quick question. So this is this is creating properties in the user data that's for Pop Rocket. And it's not within the user data. Is it like separated from the user data? So I haven't read through the whole thing yet.
It's not like it uses interface instead of setting property one by one in a struct. Because if you take a look on the code nowadays, it's set like a ton of properties for the bottle rocket. So I'm removing those properties and rely on interface and like just marshal and unmarshal this interface
From the user data.
Yeah.
on
I
the
mean,
user data correctly.
Okay.
if I understand correctly, this should be more or less the same thing we already do for AL 2023's user data. Because it also is a structured, it's not TOML, but it's YAML. But we do something similar where we basically just read in the fields that we need to understand and override, but then pass everything
Mhm.
else through raw.
Got it. I
Yeah,
wonder,
something like that.
I'll link an issue. The reason I bring this up is I think we talked about last week, which is the templating for custom AMI family. But ignoring the templating, it's to me it seems like every other AMI family has some struggle of marshaling things into things it needs. And I'm wondering if there's value in refiguring out how to have some structure in user data such that you can pass these scanning things through without, just doing it one off for Power Rocket, one off for AL2, if that makes sense.
Well, I think generally speaking, if you're not using the custom AMI family, the user data is kind of a last resort of there's a feature available on my specific AMI that Karpenter doesn't natively support through the node class that I want to be able to configure. I think generally speaking, if a feature is relevant enough for Karpenter users, we try and support it through the node class natively and automatically generate the relevant user data. So like an example would be for instance store, like if you have NVMe instances and you set the instance store policy to NVMe,
Yep.
Karpenter automatically handles mounting those volumes.
Right.
All of the different node classes. Or
Right.
node classes, user data types.
Right. I guess ignoring the ones that make sense commonly it sounds like there's still a set of properties that all the other family has that like you want to marshal in some way from user data that's passed through into something more structured, right? I just don't know. I guess like in my mind, it's like there's something here that like we have nowhere to shove in this information. So we're putting in user data, but there's some expectation on the other side that Karpenter knows how to marshal that into something versus we can just provide a field which is like explicitly here's YAML. And then on the other side, based on the AMI family, I was like, okay, this is YAML, but I know this is Bottle Rocket. I'm going to marshal this into the properties I care about, or this is custom AMI. I can use it and marshal that into whatever. Yeah, that makes sense. It it doesn't have to be part of this. I'm just wondering out loud if that makes sense.
I mean, are you thinking, because that's more or less what we do with kubelet settings, right?
Mm-hmm. But I think kubelet is explicit, right?
Right now it is. I think we could make it less explicit. I don't think there's a reason we couldn't make it pass through everything instead of only the fields that Karpenter is aware of.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't thought about it too much, like what complications there would be there.
Yeah, same.
But
I'm just throwing thoughts around. Yeah.
yeah, I think generally you are still limited to whatever basically like the common set of features of all of our supported Omni families are.
Right. And adding something that's slightly more free will allow us to not have to update the core, like the Karpenter library, and yet simply rely on the provider or whatever to be like, I know how to consume this slightly free form YAML to something that I understand versus like, okay, we have to add another thing to digest this other property, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, for something like kubelet, we could certainly do that. I have a hard time imagining what other fields we would want to support natively in the node class that are freeform.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true. It's unlikely, yeah.
But yeah, I think generally with Bottle Rocket is like they add
That weird stuff, yes.
like the features that they are adding nowadays are usually ones that aren't going to be common across all of our different AMIs, but we would still like to support so people don't need to upgrade Karpenter versions each time Bottle Rocket adds a new field.
Yeah, makes sense.
Which, yeah, should certainly be feasible. We do something, like I said, very similar for AL 2023. And, well, seems like there's PR up for it. So,
Ronaldo, did you have anything else on this before we move on?
No, for this one, I'm okay.
Sounds good. Thank you. Any other PRs?
For this one, I don't have any more, but just have more one PR, very quick, I swear. If you can open this one, it's just to support flex instance types.
Okay. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about or just wanted to make sure that someone is able to look at this?
Yeah, I just need some eyes on this PR, but
yeah.
if you want to discuss, up to you. But yeah, I don't have anything to add here.
If no one else is already taking a look at it, I can. I took a cursory look last week and I didn't see anything too contentious. So I think we should be able to close on this pretty quickly.
Okay. Jason, you want to assign this to yourself?
Yeah, I can go ahead and do that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Just gonna make a note so that we don't forget. All right. Any other PRs from anyone else? If not, we'll move on to issues.
Yeah, I have so we were just talking about, potentially templating variables in the EC2 node class user data. I have this RFC that I talked about in the last Thursday's working group meeting, but I made it less specific to my particular problem I was having and made it more general to relate to that issue that was just on the screen about that person having problems, like with the cluster endpoint being optional. So yeah, if people want to take a look at this and see what they think, that would be pretty awesome. But basically, it's implementing Go templating variables to be, I guess, used in the user data, and also keeping a set of known Karpenter values in there as well to be able to pass on, for example, like taints, tags, etc. Yeah, all the details are in there. So if people could take a look, that would be awesome.
Yep, pretty cool. I will definitely try to find some time to look at this. Yeah, I'd suggest everyone else to take a look at this as well. Yep, made a note in the notes too. All right, any other PRs or RFCs? Okay, let's move on to issues. Okay, go from the top. It seems like there are a bunch. Let's do something else. Go from the bottom today. Just want to make sure that some of these are not too stale. Okay, actually, you know what? I'm gonna ignore the ones which have assignees. So let's look at this. Consider prefix delegation in max spots calculation. Yeah, no, something like this came up in context of a different issue. I thought we were accounting for this somehow, but maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Yeah, if you're not accounting for it, then it seems like a valid task.
Yeah, certainly something reasonable to support. I agreed. I thought we were. I thought there was like a flag or something you could set to enable this, but I could be mistaken.
Out of curiosity, do you guys ingest the CNI nodes object from, I guess this won't show up. Will this show up?
The issue with the CNI nodes object is it's only created after the node is, right?
Yeah, okay, yeah. You would have to either do that instance type cache. Yeah, no, okay, never mind.
Yeah, it's the general scale from 0 issue.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna assign this to myself just to ensure that we don't support this today, but otherwise, I mean, it looks like a feature worth supporting. Okay. One entity. Okay. Yeah, I can't really tell what the question is. It seems like there was some discussion, and Bryant has responded quite a bit in detail. So we'll skip over this one. I'm gonna take a look at this offline to see if there's anything else that we need to do. All right, feature request, automatic spot interruption detection, and on-demand fallback.
Unless there's a response after mine, this is probably just needs more information.
Yeah, I think then I'm gonna remove the needs triage label. Right, moving on. Yeah, seems like panic. Okay.
There's like no information.
Yeah, I think I'm guessing like I know we do some sort of a health checks on startup, so maybe those API calls are failing.
I don't think you can even connect to the control plane. I think that's how I fail. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna remove this. I'll add a comment after the meeting. Skip voice shutdown. Just reading through what's being asked.
So I'd seen this one. This one is interesting. Basically, it would let Karpenter remove the node objects from the cluster a lot sooner because Karpenter waits for the instance to go from terminating to terminated before we remove the node objects. So if you basically skip that phase, then it would allow you to get rid of that object a lot faster. The cost being that there are a fair few applications that we know of that do perform work during instance shutdown. The main one being the EBS CSI driver that comes to mind off the top of my head, at least for users using the graceful node shutdown feature. So there's pros and cons of enabling this or disabling it. I think the question would be whether we want to be opinionated on can you enable or disable this or not.
Is the concern around not letting those components do their job? Because like even if we decide to let the instance terminate and like take its own time, I'm guessing we could let Karpenter just move on without waiting for it to be in the terminated state.
Yeah, so I mean, we could. The issue in this case was, and the reason we made this change, because this wasn't our behavior before V1, was you have some of those processes that run during shutdown try and get the node object. So if the node object is gone, they start failing.
Yeah, that's fair. And I thought like, and I don't remember when this came up, but I think this is mostly just ensuring that Karpenter has like more up-to-date state. Like in terms of cost, once the instance moves to terminating, the user stops getting charged, right? So it's not like the instance taking longer to terminate is ending up costing more money.
Yeah, that's where I'd be curious what the use case to actually enable this is. because from Karpenter's standpoint, there's no difference if the node claim is still there or not. We've marked it as instance terminating. It's not a scheduling target, etc. Like maybe it's just an observability thing.
Yeah, makes sense because I don't see like a reason per se. I mean, I think they're saying that okay, there's no point in Karpenter waiting for this to happen, but it's not clear what's the pain point basically. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'd kind of like to understand before we consider letting people enable this feature, mostly because it is a known foot gun if you do enable it, at least as far as I understand.
Yeah, that's fair. I can respond to this after the meeting and try to get some more clarification around why this is needed and see if there's anything else that's gonna help them. Ronaldo, you came on camera. Did you have anything to say here?
No, just paying attention to you guys.
Yeah, no, all good. Just wanted to make sure that me and Jason just don't continue talking. All right, so we'll move on to the next one. Ability to disable drift on certain fields.
I think that was part of the RFC that Matt talked about earlier.
Yeah, this the RFC would resolve this, but basically we put some rotating data in our user data field, and whenever it rotates, it causes drift, and that's not ideal for us. And we have architectural requirements that prevent us from storing these credentials in like secret manager or something. So yeah, that's basically the issue.
Okay, I think I remember this one. So is this the use case wherein these credentials are only needed during the node bootstrap? So once the node is up and running, you don't care if they get rotated?
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, we don't care because, I mean, we would care if there's new instances coming up, right? It would be using that token every time.
Yeah, no, I meant for like already running nodes since like drift only
Oh yeah,
applies to those nodes. Yeah.
yes, you're right.
Okay. So it looks like we have our RFC. I don't know what's a good label to. Is there like a review or something? Yeah, needs review. Okay. Right. So we'll move on. A bug. What I did not set.
Sounds like an issue with their bootstrap because they're using custom AMI. I haven't looked through it yet, but if you're using post custom AMI, the provider ID is either set by the cloud controller or yourself. So I don't know what they're doing, but it's not done by Carpenter.
Do we see what their user data is? Are they calling Bootstrap SH? Oh, this is some other type of AMI.
Yeah,
I
the
don't-
custom AMI type, I think that.
Yeah, I think it's either most likely something with the user data. I mean, I would be surprised if this was something with CCM either, but
I mean,
can,
either way, it's out of customers. It's out of Carpenter's hands at this
yeah.
point. Carpenter's not responsible for setting the provider ID. So, and since they're using custom user data, we play no part in that generation.
Yeah. Do you remember if I forget where this is set though? Is this something that you can specify using the user data? No, right?
Wouldn't make
Well,
sense to,
you
right?
can you can set it in the kubelet configuration, which would be somehow called from the user data. Like the user data is
Okay.
a bootstrap, whatever bootstrap script they're running, whatever they use to call on the kubelet to start the node, they would specify this provider ID there. I can
Got
add
it.
something there. I can message and add something there.
Yep. I'm gonna just drop this as a note. All right. Thanks, Arvin.
Oh, I think I didn't see any other comments here. I think they said they could close this one. For context, this is basically asking for us to be able to do in place change a on-demand instance to a reserved instance if a capacity reservation is made available that matches it. This isn't possible today because of an EC2 limitation. And there's already an issue in the upstream repo that's kind of tracking it. So they said it's good to close. They didn't close it. I think we can probably just go ahead and close it.
Um, so it is something that we just cannot support right now.
Yeah. And like I said, there's not, I think it would still be fine to track it as a feature because this is something we aspirationally do want to support once it's supported by EC2. If it becomes supported by EC2. It's just not possible for us to today.
Yeah, I think if there's no API to do it, we can't do anything, right?
There is an API, but the instance has to be stopped. You can't do it for a running instance.
Oh, I didn't know.
So yeah, it's a little bit of a weird limitation. So I'm hoping one day we'll be able to get rid of it and we can enable this, but because if you are using open ODCR matching, a running instance can go into that ODCR, but you can't switch it to gridded ODCR. So it really does seem like it's just a backends limitation. I don't know for sure, but it seems like something we could potentially change in the future.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering because yeah, this works for open, but it does it automatically for you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
I'll go ahead and close this and okay. Unfulfillable capacity recovery. Okay. Can go through this offline. Seems like it's mostly a PDB that's holding up their drain.
Yeah, I think the node that's getting held because of it seems like this is related to the change that you made. Where now we no longer, well, related in that the change you made fixed it, where we no longer consider pods that are blocked by PDBs or blocked by do not disrupt at least as provisionable pods.
Yeah, but I mean, I think in this case, I'm not sure if it's just like a slow drain or if it's like a blocking PDB which does not allow any evictions at all. Could be possible. It's just like a very, it's a PDB which allows like a very slow pod replacement. So the drain is taking a really long time.
Refresh my memory for the change that you merged. Was it only do not disrupt pods we stopped considering, or was it also pods with blocking PDBs?
It was do not disrupt and pods with fully blocking PDBs.
Got it. Okay.
So not just like a PDB that's just stopping something at a point in time, but if you just have like a misconfiguration wherein you have set it to 0% unavailable or like 100% available.
Okay. Got it. So yeah, maybe this isn't directly related then. But...
Yeah. I can take a look at this. All right. Feature request. Support single process home kill for non-bottleneck applications. Yes. Let's see any comments, and I have no idea about this feature, so unless someone has some context and wants to talk about it, I'm just gonna look at this offline. Probably have to do some research on what this feature is.
Isn't that, isn't this killing, there's some complication with C groups. Is this killing one of the sub C group and it will kill the whole pod? I don't know how this is related to, is this simply a feature that you can enable on the kubelet?
I think it is because that upstream issue said it was a
Yeah, okay. I think it's
So-
within the kubelet config to include this.
Yeah, I think our stance up till now is we're not going to expand the kubelet structs for anything other than like fields that we're required to know about for scheduling. So just add it in user data, and Karpenter handles the merge. I could see us at some point doing an unstructured kubelet field, like Garvin was talking about earlier in the meeting. But our stance has been until we do something like that, we're not just going to one-off keep adding kubelet fields as people need them.
Okay, yeah. Then I think that's the solve for this issue is tell them to add it to the user data.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like they're saying that we added it for bottle rocket, but not for other army types. So they specifically just wanted to make sure it's being tracked for other army types.
Well, I mean, we shouldn't need to track it for other army types. The thing with Bottle Rocket is the only user data type where we require the unstructured like user data field to match a specific structure in code. All of the other armies are just passed through.
Oh, so someone can just go ahead and set it.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any explicit change needed to support it for, say, AL 2023, AL2, Windows. I mean, this is where the PR that was raised at the beginning of this meeting is going to be great for Bottle Rocket, is so we also don't need to add the individual fields each time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. No, I think maybe this just needs clarification. Can do that. I don't think we'll have enough to go from here, but can just add a comment requesting more information.
I
Yeah,
don't even think this is Carpenter related. This is the
Almost.
CNI, right? Those
yeah, almost certainly. Could potentially be like a user data misconfiguration thing, but probably not.
Right? Memory leak. Okay. Yeah, I can take a look at this. I do remember there was like a slow memory leak a while ago because we were not cleaning up some metrics, but that was fixed. So I don't know if this is something new or maybe something that has existed, but we just never really noticed it.
Yeah, could also be just garbage collection thresholds.
It'll
Worth
be-
investigating, but
it'll be good if they can do creep off dump or something because it's not a lot to go off of here. It's just a graph that goes up in memory.
Yeah, I think I'll at least need to uh, have them provide some YAMLs or like reproduction steps so that we can reproduce this and then go from there. Okay.
Do we have how to get the pprof data out and document somewhere so that users like this can like easily do that for you guys?
it's documented in the development guide page,
Okay.
I believe.
Okay.
The
I wasn't sure. I
documentation
never
could probably
looked.
use some work. I think it's pretty bare bones if I remember correctly, but there are like enable this environment variable to enable the pprof endpoint, and so on.
Got it. Let's take a look.
Okay. I think this seems like a reasonable ask. I thought that we used, or we at least logged this request ID in certain cases. Maybe not in this one. I can try to take a look.
Yeah, the one thing with this, a caveat is if you have a node claim that's compatible with 50 instance types, and we set this response, the create fleet call for that node claim might not have actually sent all 50 instance types. Because we may have already seen that some subset of them were iced in our internal cache.
Yeah, but I think I don't know if we just don't log it at all, but it seems a fair ask to at least have us log this request ID when we get something similar from Fleet, so that at least they can potentially look at it on their CloudTrail or like just to send this to like the support team.
Yeah,
What I've seen, it does have the request. It will be good to get somewhere. Like usually it shows it. At least I've seen it. So
Yeah,
I'm
that
surprised that I don't. If we don't see it.
maybe
Yeah.
they're on an older version. I think from some of their other issues, they're on a relatively new version though. Because we added this somewhat recently, I think.
yeah, that's kind of what I remember too. All right, you can take a look at this. Okay, the last one for today.
Well, I see zone does not exist. You can't make an instance with a zone that doesn't exist. So either it's a weird node pool configuration or they've got some weird pod constraints which are coercing that.
Yeah. Is that coming from though? I'm just curious.
Pod anti-affinity would be my best guess. Like if you have a pod anti-affinity on zone, and you have pods that exist in every possible zone that match that anti-affinity, the node claim that we are going to try and create to fit that pod just can't have a zone. Which, yeah, obviously you can't do.
Is that something that we said then? Like the does not exist thing?
I can't remember if we would show does not exist or an empty array.
Okay, because like based on what I see here, it seems like does not exist, but I don't see this like obviously in their YAMLs. So
Those might be represented the same in memory because the requirement struct is somewhat optimized. Like it doesn't cleanly map to those different like the different operators and the different values. There's like the complement, not complement set of values. So in nothing, I think might be the same representation as does not exist. So you just print one of them.
yeah, it's possible.
Because they are the same thing semantically.
It also seems like it's something that may not be provider specific, but I think they probably think that it's like a Maxport thing. So okay, yeah, we'll have to take a look to see what's happening. All right, I think that gets us to the end of the triage queue. We still have some time left, so does anyone have anything else that they want to bring up?
I got a quick question about the thing we just the issue that we talked about earlier. I wonder if I think most user has a pod or deployment and I want to match in against a node pool. I wonder if there's some value in having a tool that says, here's my deployment, here's my node pool. Tell me why I'm not landing there. Because Karpenter is able to evaluate that, but then when you look at it in your cluster with like tens of node pools, it becomes almost impossible to parse that log. But if it's direct one-to-one, hey, I want this on this, why didn't it work? Then I think you can clearly say like, here are all the things that didn't work, and you won't have to dive through the logs and be like, because this one toleration is missing because of this node pool, if that makes sense. There's a better way to diagnose like things not matching, maybe.
When you say
Like,
not matching, is it in the sense that like a user expects a particular pod to go into a
yeah,
certain node
yeah.
pool and it doesn't?
Yeah, I feel like that happens sometimes where like I'm trying to put this thing in this thing. It's not matching or it's not doing the thing I wanted to, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
And usually the user knows like I want this pod to land on this node pool, and it didn't do it. And it's hard to parse the logs as to why if your cluster is relatively big, but you can just say match these two together, like off like this as a side tool or like a command you can run well from Karpenter. Then you'd be like, oh, it didn't run, it didn't match because these things. And a good way to diagnose like why things are not working, then they might have to not have to ask the question here. They can just say, oh, run the tool, figure it out yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like the idea. I I'm not sure if it's gonna be easy to do though, because I think one of the things that we always talk about is like Carpenter can only estimate where a pod can go. Like it's the cube scheduler which actually schedules the
Right.
pod, right? So,
I
We
think generally here though, we're talking more about
provisioning,
why is
yeah.
Carpenter not even creating a node claim for this pod?
oh, I
Right,
see.
right,
Yeah,
yeah,
So
yeah.
I do wonder if
Ignoring
you
the
that
get
makes
schedule.
sense.
I do wonder if you get most of the way there with more detailed trace logs, like specifically saying like, hey, we filtered out this node claim template for this pod for this reason. And then having the ability to basically, like since we have structured logs, having a field for the pod, so you basically filter, give me all of the logs from the provisioner for this pod to kind of work out why that specific pod couldn't schedule. You would never run Carpenter with this in production long term because you'd have
Yeah,
terabytes of logs.
yeah.
But it could be valuable to have that level of tracing simply for these one-off debug sessions.
I think, I guess right now it has a lot of locks. Like it talks about like pod cannot be matched to no pools, and it shows like list like a bunch of locks for every reason that it didn't match one of any of the no pools. And I'm wondering if it's for me it's hard to understand. Like I can't tell why I didn't reject a specific no pool when I only care about a specific no pool that I know it should land on. And I don't think Carpenter can predict that because it didn't match. So it wouldn't know what the human wants. So if there's some way to narrow in, like my pod, this no pool, maybe even in the logs, like this no pool, this is a reason it didn't match. I think that doesn't show in the logs right now either. Like it'll show every reason, but I don't think it tells you why not this no pool. I think. Unless it's new 1.6, but 1.5 it didn't. I think it just shows you all the reason it didn't tolerate canes, all the things it didn't match, but it doesn't tell you the no pool.
I thought it does tell you the node pool. It's just a little bit hard to parse because it's all of the node pools in
Yeah.
line. Like
Yeah, likely, yeah.
I think the information is there, but I agree that it could be in a more presentable format.
Right. Yeah, that would be
If
helpful.
anything, just a tool to parse that specific log.
That would be perfect too. Yes. Because yeah, I think like you said, it just dumps everything. And I think it's like almost impossible to parse just staring at the log statement itself.
No, for that log, I think it is. I want to say it is. Oh no, it's not JSON formatted. Maybe that would honestly be helpful enough is if we just JSON formatted it so you could copy it out, parse it
Yeah.
with JQ.
If you just have like a key value, like no pull, why it didn't match. That likely will make my life much easier. Yeah, simple as that. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that being a pretty quick win. Maybe not as far as we ever want to go with it, but at least
Yeah.
an improvement over where we're at today.
Yeah, I think I mean it seems like we could also use some more details in our troubleshooting section. I don't know if we have that, but just maybe a list of like grep commands or something to start off with, and then eventually like extend that to like JQ and just have like a defined set of things wherein, hey, you know what, like if you're seeing this and if you want to figure out like why the bots are not getting scheduled, then just run this.
Right.
I think our troubleshooting is mostly geared towards like development and like for very basic stuff, right, Jason? Do you remember?
I wouldn't say that. I definitely wouldn't say it's geared towards development.
No,
Um,
I'm just remembering.
I think it is more focused at that use case, but it is less about. It kind of starts at, I already know what the problem is. I want to know how to solve it, versus how do I discover what the problem is in the first place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fair. You're just looking, but yeah, I mean, I think it's section here around like, hey, you know what, like how do you troubleshoot if you have a pod that's just not getting scheduled? I think we have some very targeted things, like you said. I mean, probably when people know what the problem is, but not like a more general thing. Okay. Yeah, and I brought this up because again, I don't know if this helps with what you were asking for strictly, Garvin, but in general, obviously, I mean, we have gotten a lot of complaints from users because apart from things that are visible in logs, I mean, it's very hard for them to really tell how Karpenter is making certain decisions. So just having some sort of a tracing mechanism for them to go and take a look at why certain decisions were made is also going to help.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know how fine-grained we can do with OTel, but I mean, always +1 for tracing, better tracing.
Yeah, especially around questions like, hey, you know what, like I upgraded to like a newer version of Karpenter and I'm seeing a lot of things happen that should not happen or I did not
Yeah,
expect them to happen. And most of the times it just, comes back to us and like, hey, you know what, we made these changes in consolidation or we made these changes in scheduling. So at least it would be nice for them to get an easier answer.
yeah,
Do you want to create like a like an issue for, I don't know, maybe just improving our troubleshooting section for that particular case?
sure. I can, if there's nothing, I can add something. I wasn't sure if there's
Yeah, I think
something
there are
extra.
like a bunch of things here, but nothing that's like a little more general. I think these are like fairly specific problems and what you do when you run into those.
Yeah, I can add something.
That's good. All right. Anything else before we drop? Going once, going twice. All right. I think then let's call it today. Thank you everyone for attending and see you all next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.